have reached June 12th, 2023, just over halfway into the year, but at the very, very end of the NCAA sports year. Baseball's the last one left to go. Oklahoma won their third straight NCAA softball title recently, and then promptly lost their best player to Nebraska. So, funny.
That's like earth shattering. Like,
Apparently, she was recruited by Nebraska originally and is from Nebraska too. So, that did a number there. So I get the reasoning if even beyond just if there was an NIL deal, just the idea that like, okay, no, let me go play some time at home with the free transfer.
I mean, you know who else has a free transfer and is originally from Nebraska and is quite good at softball?
I don't.
This is Tech Connection. That's Emma Cow.
Oh, that's right.
This is me just complete conjecturing on the fly, but
that's a good point.
Wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world.
No,
and honestly, Nebraska softball could use a little loving. And if it takes away from Oklahoma, that's fine by me. I love softball. Love watching softball. It's a great sport. Family's deeply connected to it. My high school just got like third in the state of Illinois this year on a heartbreaking loss in 13 innings. Mm-hmm. You know, been involved with this sport a long time. And man, the postseason after the regionals, Oklahoma felt so inevitable. I don't know.
They did.
Anything to see them get knocked down a peg is fine by me and a little bit entertaining. So
yeah, that I do wish it was. It was still fun to watch. I'm glad they got more night games. That was a point of contention the last couple of years, and they finally got that solved. So that was good. Jake Grant, Jack Purdy here with you. So I did want to acknowledge that we kind of forgot to mention lacrosse last week during the Best of Georgia Tech. While technically they're not a varsity sport, they did make national championships in Round Rock, Texas, and were a really, really good team. So honorable mention in all categories, I guess, except for female athlete of the year for the men's club lacrosse team. So hey, maybe one day, once we build a stadium somewhere for some women's sport, whether it's field hockey, lacrosse, or soccer, maybe the men's lacrosse team will come one day. Who the hell knows?
Jack, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Did you know that men's varsity lacrosse used to be a thing that existed?
That wouldn't surprise me because I know like wrestling and gymnastics also were at points. So
yeah, it wasn't contemporaneous with those two teams. It was actually contemporaneous with rifle and boxing in the pre-Great Depression era. It was kind of the pet project of Tech's, once in, I guess not once in future, but the Crenshaw building, Modern Languages. Mm-hmm. Yeah, J.B. Crenshaw was a modern languages professor and the athletic director who was obsessed with lacrosse. He came down from the Northeast. Shocker. Okay. So it's his pet project. And really back in the day, we were the only team in the Southeast. It was very much not an Atlanta sport. This is getting way off topic, but there is a legacy of it. I know that they have tremendous support. Not to compare against any existing varsity teams, but I'd say that them in hockey probably have as robust of followings as some of our non-rev sports.
Yeah.
But takes a lot of money not just to get a lacrosse field, but even more so to get a hockey rink. So we'll have to find some rich friends or something like that to make that happen.
Only on Signs of the Southland does a lacrosse diversion turn into a history lesson from pre-Great Depression. Only here.
I'll plug myself here. I did a guest piece for Matt Brown, and if you don't, there's like 3 Matt Browns in the college football universe. Matt Brown of Extra Points. I did a guest piece on his blog, kind of about that when COVID was really shutting everything down. It was actually edited by our third co-host Akshay heavily because he's a great editor. But yeah, no, just kind of like, is there precedent for bringing sports back? What happens in chaos of some great systemic shock? It's on his website. I think it might be behind a paywall, but it's also on what's it called? It's like Beyond the Trestle or another like Southern sports history website kind of co-posted it, and that one's free. So I recommend looking it up. It's an interesting read, and lacrosse kind of got the short end of the stick. Obviously, baseball and swimming came back because we talk about those to this day.
Yeah.
But rifle, boxing, lacrosse, we're not great footing before the Depression, and certainly was a little tough once everything kind of went down the drain.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyways, I could talk about that probably all day, but we don't have time for that. So.
All right, now I will mention Jake has been digitizing the entirety of Tech sports history as much as he can find on the internet via the hundreds of media guides that exist. You only need one set to really get everything, but Soon to be fully completed for those that are nerdy enough to want to just create their own stats and stuff. It will be there, Jake. I assume this is not. It's not fully ready, but we're like close to done, or you're close to done.
Yeah, if anybody out there listening has any access to GT Athletics, I'm working on finding other people to reach out to there. But essentially, the results that I'm looking for mostly are swimming and diving dual meet results for based on year, right? Because we have totals against specific teams, but I would argue that season-based records are rather important. And even if, kind of like golf, not a lot of match play or dual meet, that kind of back and forth in I guess many years for swimming, but them track cross country, if there's any records of that would be something I'm looking for. Golf, I'm kind of in the middle of match play digitizing, but I have football, baseball, both basketball, softball, volleyball, and both tennis up and kind of ready to go. I'm working on some biz like data viz plots, customizing pivots, things like that. So I'd say that the sports that are predominantly match play are in there and good, but tennis doesn't have records that I can access before 1947. There's a couple sports with random years missing. Golf doesn't have records before 1947 that are public. So there's some holes. And then, of course, there's no, we just talked about Georgia Tech lacrosse. I would love to get my hands on that. I'm sure they're in the archives somewhere. But I mean, yeah. I got to get the swimming and dive, the sports that still exist first, I feel like, before I try and find boxing or rifle or even wrestling and gym. I don't know how many gymnastics, men's dual meets there were, because I'm just not as familiar with men's gymnastics and whatnot. Because it was a men's team. It was not women's gymnastics.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you got to start with the teams that exist first. If anybody's got the complete swimming records, give me a hit. But it's close. We're close. Trying to figure out the best way to make it public, because right now I have it on my personal Streamlit, which I feel like is a weird thing to kind of tie that to. So I'll work on how we can fold it into From the Rumble Seat, or something adjacent to that. Maybe its own standalone site or something like that. That's just permanently linked from our homepage. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But
it'll be a really good
ideally resource. It gets there somewhere.
Yeah, it'll be a really good resource for those that want to dig in and just it'll be a good platform to get more findings, and also knowing just in general in terms of the old stuff, like photographs are extremely hard to come by. Like if you go to Russ Chandler, one of the people that's on like the Wall of Fame thing, like their photo isn't there because they weren't really doing profile pics in 1920. So just record keeping in general it's just it's extremely hit or miss. Pre-World War, either World War, really, for this matter. So,
I mean, there's some teams whose coaches for a whole season are unknown or only listed as their first name. Yeah. Like one that comes to mind is Coach Todd of football. Who is Coach Todd? I don't know, but or baseball. Sorry, but he's just listed as Coach Todd.
Interesting. Wonder if he's related to Bill Todd and Scheller. That'd be kind of funny if he was.
Maybe he was above 500 in his whole tenure, but I don't know. What was his last name? I don't know.
Who knows? Todd. So yeah, beyond that, we'll have Best of Georgia Tech 2022-2023 article coming out tomorrow or today. Actually, I'm going to post this after we're done recording. So yes, tomorrow. That would be Tuesday the 13th, and we got some people in the tech media community get to send us some votes on their best of, similar to what we did last week on the podcast. And got more options. Got more answers out there, and we'll aggregate some a little bit. There's only so many votes, so it's not going to be like a out of 50 or anything like that. But anyways, moving one little tennis note. Carol Lee was named first team of All ACC. Kylie Bilchev was named second team. So adding on to the postseason awards there. We also have 3 updates in the international jackets category in golf, volleyball, and women's basketball. We mentioned before that Crystal Lamprecht made the international team for the Arnold Palmer Cup. The U.S. ended up winning that this past weekend, 32 points to 28 points. Christo played in 4 sessions, mixed 4-ball, foursomes, mixed foursomes, and singles. His only victory was with Kaylee McGinty in the mixed 4-ball session, where he won 4 and 3, and then lost before the 18th hole in every other match. So that's how that went, which sadly just kind of follows his not too great stretch at NCAAs also. So his match play has not exactly been his friend. as of recently. So hopefully that'll solve itself going forward in a while. Julia Bergman has been in the Volleyball Nations League for Brazil. It's a longer event. The soccer version is a pretty compact. The soccer one's stretched out over 2 years. This one's a little bit more compact, just in the summer. They played China, the Dominican Republic, and Croatia in the last couple weeks. She posted a 15 kill, 9 dig, and a block against China in a 5-set loss. Had 11 kills, 7 digs, and 2 blocks against the Dominican Republic, and then had 10, 3, and 1 in a sweep against Croatia. And she's 4th in serve receive so far. So she is getting all of the action you could want coming straight out of college, and is making a mark on that team for sure. Not like on top of any of the leaderboards in the tournament, because it's the pros now. It's a little bit different. There will be more games if you want to watch. If you go to VNL, it's the acronym Volleyball Nations League. You actually can watch these games somehow on their website. You may have to pay for it or something like that, but it's there in the tournament. They're gonna have games. Brazil's gonna have games through July, so there's a lot of options. There's still a lot of games to be able to see Julia in the yellow and blue, and green, I guess. I haven't checked their uniform. And then lastly, Cameron Swartz today signed with AE Cities Basket, their Spanish team. So her professional career is going to get going. She didn't get drafted in the W, so she's going to be out in Spain. This team began in the 60s. That's all I really know about it. But our Marietta girl is going to Spain, so won't be the only one out there. Derea Hermosa is still playing for the Spanish national team. I don't know if she's signed with the club or not yet, so... at least we got Swartz out there. Kubai is playing for the Italian team right now as well. Lotomai Latin, I think, is still recovering from knee surgery that she had late last year, so isn't fully up to speed with the Finnish team. But I know she's still looking to sign somewhere. So those are the international updates. Stateside, Section 103 is stateside, right? Stateside. I can't speak right now, Jake. Let you start talking.
Well, given their recent tweeting, I believe that they weren't until very recently, but that's why they weren't shipping, I presume, this past week. But the good news is now they are again. So go definitely recommend checking them out. As always, free shipping on orders over $70, but they are back in town, back shipping, and back stateside. I did have a random thing on the Cam Schwartz the Cam Schwartz news. Yeah. So the town she's playing is La Seu d'Urgell, which is in the north, I guess the northwest of Catalonia. So kind of region near Barcelona, if you will. Just south of Andorra, so near an interesting microstate, but was the site of canoeing and kayaking for the 1992 Barcelona Olympics.
That's cool.
Which kind of, when you think about the Olympics, I always thought it was odd how much of Atlanta's stuff didn't take place like in the city of Atlanta.
Right.
But
yeah.
I guess for a lot of these, you kind of got to go out into the woods to get a good place to kayak and whatnot, or do equestrian, things like that. So, anyways, I thought that was a little fun tidbit when I was reading about the town, because you do the old look up the team on Wikipedia, click a link, find something new, click another link, find something new, and then you're 8 pages deep and you've learned about kayaking.
What link do you click to go to section103.com?
I don't know if they're on Wikipedia, but I'm sure there's enough tech Wikipedia editors that they could probably get that fixed up. I don't know how that works, but somebody listening, get on that. That'd be great.
Wheeling back to the track, so the final bit of the 2022-2023 academic season for Georgia Tech is done. Over the past weekend, the NCAA Track and Field Championships were in Austin, Texas at UT Austin. Zach Yeager and Jameer Gibson, as we mentioned, were competing at the NCAA Championships. Gibson was in discus and shot put. Yeager in the 3,000-meter steeplechase. Jake, how did they do?
I'd say pretty well. Obviously, they weren't competing. Well, I guess they were theoretically competing for a team title, but the two of them did get their All-American honors. I know in our sheet it's noted that Yeager is the first All-American in steeplechase for Texans. Eric Smith, that's 1987, and he's the Tech record holder, which just gives you a little bit of context for how long not only that record has stood, but since we've had kind of that distance outdoor track in general presence on the men's side. We've had some really great one-off performances or two-off performances. Nahom Solomon comes to mind in terms of recent cross country and things like that, but not really believe there's an ACC title on the women's track and field side. I know for a fact that cross country came really close to winning one a couple of years ago, but the men's team as a whole hasn't really been there as frequently, despite producing, Olympians and one-off performances that are pretty excellent. Anyways, all that to say, Jaeger is charting some unknown territory. He did finish 17th in the steeplechase. Gibson's results put him at 23rd and 18th overall, and that concludes his college career. Much ado has been made about getting him as a transfer. He was in fact a grad transfer, and he will now go off with his second engineering degree into doing great things in association with the Army and all that service that comes with that.
Yeah, for sure. So that'd be cool. And then Jaeger, his time was 847.94. Gibson, his shot put was 17.37 meters, got him to 23rd. Discus, 56.75 meters, got to 18th. And for all three of them, they finished higher than their entry seed. So improved. Very different from what we saw at the swimming national titles, where everyone got really bad in Minneapolis, but these guys all got better in Texas down there. So that was a cool thing to see, at least for them personally.
Jack, I wasn't going to go there, but you're not incorrect, so I will definitely allow it.
Oh, there we go.
Not that you asked my permission or need to. But.
No, I do not. Before we move on to golf, I did forget to put in that there were some official roster announcements by Tech Football. Hey, we're going to talk about football in case you were missing us talking about football. So I'm going to just go through these names just so that they're on record here. Dominic Blaylock, he's a Georgia guy from Marietta. He did play at Georgia for 3 years from 19 to 22. So this is his grad transfer year. He has 2 seasons of eligibility left, so could get some stuff from Dominic. He's at wide receiver, so a nice hole to fill there. You have defensive back Omar Daniels, also a Georgian from Moultrie, Georgia. He went to Kansas State for a while, or for a year. He's got 3 seasons of eligibility remaining. He was a reserve corner at Kansas State. All this is coming from RamblingWreck.com, by the way.
Kansassaw State.
Kansassaw State. Justin Brown out of Blackman High School in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 3-star prospect at what's position defensive back. Good 2-way player, so that'll be fun to see. Eddie Kelly from Orlando. He was at USF for a year, still has 3 years of eligibility remaining. Oh, this is interesting, Jake. He's got 3 years of eligibility left because he's a non-COVID guy. We're finally back to the group of people that have only 4 real years of eligibility. We're at. I think we might be at the back end of the 5-year folks.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly nice when freshman softball players aren't going up against 25-year-olds or something like that.
There will not be another Stetson Bennett in my college football.
Be careful what you wish for.
Unless you start college late. That's what Brandon Whedon did. Anyways, back to the actual topic. Paul Mayola, who does have COVID eligibility, he's got 2 seasons of eligibility left. He was at Notre Dame for 4 seasons at Notre Dame. Appeared in 23 games, and then had a pit stop in Idaho last year. But he's gonna be playing linebacker for us. And then Connor Scaglione from New Jersey. He spent 4 years at Princeton. This is his grad transfer year. Hey, Mom, your Princeton alma mater's got a kid at Tech now, so that's kind of cool. And then that is what I got there for the football updates, at least what we have up there. I know we're not exactly the best we're not beat writing on the football stuff, so if you want your up-to-date stuff, sadly that's not our stuff. But what we have on football is our 100 Days to Football prep work, our article series. We're doing featured players right now, and we'll run through the position groups. We're going to run through the coaches throughout the summer, so we'll make sure you're up to speed for football when it all is getting ready to kick off against Louisville at MBS. Let us shift to golf, which cannot play at MBS because they would kill the ball out of the roof. So, Jake, what happened with the golf stuff, or what updates do we have on golf stuff?
Yeah, so golf got a few more All-American honors. Shame on us for not mentioning Christo Lamprecht last week and his first team All-American award. We also had Connor Howe, who's 18th in the PGA University rankings. He's through to PGA Canada for sure this coming year and got the honorable mention GCAA All-American, while Ross Steelman, who's 4th and is going to the Korn Ferry Tour, got a second team nod. So really great showing for some really critical parts of that team and that special run this year. Mm-hmm. We also now know the U.S. Open field. That'll include Stuart Sink, Matty Kuchar, and Paul Haley II. So that's fun. I don't know what else to say. The U.S. Open will be happening. Go
Yeah.
check it out.
It's at LA Country Club this year, so we're gonna have prime time golf for us East Coasters, which is gonna be real fun. Which also means like those rounds can be ending like near 10 o'clock at night, which is always it throws me off when that happens. It throws me off when I'm watching golf past 8 o'clock at night and it's dark outside, because everything happens in the East Coast for the most part of the big golf events. Um, I'll just note the Live PGA Tour merger. If you know me well enough, know that threw me for an absolute tailspin over the last week. And then Messi announced he was coming to America. So my media week last week was incredible in terms of how chaotic it felt for me. I listened to so much golf podcasting last week. It just nearly burned my ears.
So you had a lot of fun, is what I'm hearing.
I had a lot of fun,
a lot of entertainment.
I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of blood boiling moments as well. But that's not for here. Finally returning is Jake's historic bit of the week that needs a segment name, which is basically trivia. So it says it is back. No spoilers. So I don't know what's about to happen over the next couple minutes here.
I know I've used this premise a couple times, but it's a really simple question. Also, listeners, before I say what the question is, I'm thinking of doing some sort of trivia, Jeopardy, something. Would love to figure out a way to make it interactive and, post to the site and whatnot, but I'll keep you posted there. So, like I said, I have all this data. I want to use it. So keep that in mind. If you're interested, reach out, usual channels, DM from the rumbleseat@gmail.com, comment on the post, all that good stuff. Would love to get people involved. If you have ideas or what you think would be fun, maybe we do a meetup. I don't know. We've talked about that for years at the site, but TBD. I don't think we've done one of those since the 2014 ACC football championship,
oh, no.
But that's before my time. Anyways, Jack, real simple premise.
Okay.
Similar premise to one we've used before. In all sports for which the known data caveats apply.
Yes.
How many schools has Georgia Tech played? Schools, teams, or other organizations, high schools, whatever. Has Georgia Tech, including exhibitions, number of opponents has Georgia Tech faced?
In everything that you have compiled.
In football, baseball, basketball, everything. Softball, volleyball, tennis.
All of the military bases, all of the pro teams, all of the non-existent colleges, everything.
All the dairies and oil companies and
all of the
semi-pro amateurs.
Oh my goodness.
The University of Havana.
See,
That's at least one.
I was able to figure out your question about how many games Danny Hall has been a part of just because of the stretch of time and the explosion of games. The problem is I can have a sense of the explosion of games for all sports, but the number of teams, no way. Because it's so random in so many places. Can you at least give me the number of sports before I allocate a guess?
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, you got baseball, who's played
every team
5,000 games.
Yeah.
And you've got football, which really only has 700. So, or
they've still been around since forever.
Exactly. Both of those teams have been around since the 1890s. So you've got football since 1892.
Right.
Baseball since 1896. Basketball, men's on and off again since the aughts.
Mm-hmm.
You've got women's basketball around since the 70s, along with women's tennis. Men's tennis, the records start in 1947. You've got softball and volleyball that also start in the late 70s, early 80s, getting into swing as well. I've also included all results that are available for those sports. So for the women's team, this does include the time in which they were AIAW teams, i.e. playing a lot of local and Georgia schools, pre-ACC, but post just being a club team, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The high hundreds is what's ringing in my head right now.
I keep going with that thought.
Keep going with the high hundreds thought. Okay. 6 feels a little low. If I got to 1,000, in my head, at 1,100 still feels like too much because eventually, because there's a lot of copying. A lot of this, all the non-rev teams, they played all the same teams. Football and baseball played for the most part. So those are, you really only have to think about football and baseball, and you have 95% of them. I would feel, and basketball too. That would cover most of them. So I'm going to. I think I'm going to go with 750.
I like your train of thought. You were a little bit high.
Okay.
It's actually 611.
Interesting. I was thinking of 6. Dang.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
And you got to
Interesting.
think of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 schools. I'm sure you could guess most of them that are on this list. Probably not in the right order after the first two.
Yeah.
But of those 10 schools, actually, you know what the number 1 is. And I assume you'll know what the number 2 is, but it goes Georgia and Clemson.
I was gonna guess
And then
Auburn. Actually, I was gonna guess Auburn. Actually.
Well, you got to think we've played in the ACC.
Well, we've been long enough. It's been long enough. That's
more,
right. That's right. Yeah.
And conference schedules are a lot longer.
That's true. That's
like
true.
Women's basketball was never in the SEC or any. Granted, they do play Auburn every once in a while. But I'm doing some quick maths here. So actually, of the top 10 schools, Georgia, Clemson, UNC, Virginia, Duke, NC State, Auburn, Florida State, Wake Forest, and Maryland. We've played all of those schools at least 400 times.
Interesting. Okay.
Georgia, 959 alone. And this is out of a total of about 15,900. So if you think about it, that 959 plus 737 for Clemson, 639 for North Carolina, 601 for Virginia, 591 for Duke, 564 for NC State, 557 for Auburn. I promise this is getting to a point. 547 for Florida State, 461 for Wake, and 454 for Maryland. That's 6,110 games out of the approximately 16,000 we've ever played. That's 39% of all time Tech games have come against just the top 10 teams.
Wow.
Which I think is pretty interesting. And the vast majority of those games are when they were conference mates.
Yeah.
After Maryland, you bump into your Mercer, your Georgia State, Miami, Tennessee, Georgia Southern, other things you'd expect. But the vast majority of these historical records are all the same 10 teams.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It would be cool to eventually. Does your thing compile everything? Can you generate a list of just the all-time win-loss record and combined every sport against every school?
You want Georgia Tech's all-time wins, losses, ties, win percentage across all sports?
Yes.
Yeah, that's 568.
Okay, great. I didn't know if that was made.
Okay. No, I'm staring right at it. It's one of my default.
Okay, great.
Default ones.
Yeah, that will be cool to. I think that might be a thing that's a thing we should write about. Actually, let's okay, back in mind. Okay.
We'll let it cook.
I've got ideas.
I'll leave it out there that basically you can pivot this data however you want it. So home record, away record, neutral, games coached by John Heisman across all 3 teams that he coached for, all that good stuff. So
the next
and John Heisman, surprisingly terrible basketball coach, but that's for another podcast.
The next list I want is every D1 team that we haven't played in anything.
Oh, that would take me a minute to.
It would take a while, so that's not for this episode thing. But that would be cool to see, like, who we haven't touched on yet in the country. Because with all the realignment stuff, I have a feeling everyone's gonna start spreading their wings of who they play pretty soon. So we'll see how all that goes. That's all we have.
I got one more thing for you.
Okay,
before we go on, since this is a volleyball podcast and we haven't really talked about them that much. I think one of the most key teams that we've only played one time across all sports, all options, et cetera, is South Dakota. Jack, do you know the volleyball significance of having only played South Dakota one time?
Is that because we won the NIVC against them, South Dakota thing? Are they the Jackrabbits?
Yeah, it was in their gym. Or are they Jackrabbits? They're the red and the white and the black and all that good stuff.
I don't think they're not the Jackrabbits. Never mind. That might be someone else.
Oh well. But you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I think that's our opposite side of the spectrum, our most notable single game, a single opponent result.
That is cool.
Anyways, more to ponder. There's 16,000 stories all wrapped up in this, let alone the trends and all that good stuff.
So many stories. Yeah, I think that's all we got for this week. Actually, I had a hell of a work week, so he's off for now. Although not a super busy week on our front, so we easily took the reins. Next week, I think we're gonna review. I've had this list of all the D1 champions this athletic year, so I think we'll recap that once baseball's done. Spoiler alert: Texas did not win 5-7 like I thought they were going to like they did last year. So a little bit more parity across the board. That's what you got to look forward to. Unless your name is Stanford, in which case you won everything again.
I believe Texas needed to win both the baseball and like women's track and field titles to knock Stanford off of the Director's Cup position. If I remember reading Matt Brown's tweet, yes, a second Matt Brown mentioned. Go follow Extra Points. He's great.
Texas did indeed win women's track and field. Stanford currently is sitting with 3 championships this year. Texas has 2.
So Stanford and Texas are playing for the opportunity for Texas to win the Director's Cup tonight at 8 p.m. on the Worldwide Leader. So
yes,
that's kind of interesting.
So that's what we got. Thanks for listening. I don't think I have nothing else. You have nothing else, I assume, at this point. So
I'll take us away.
Go do it.
Yeah. As always, please reach out with any comments, questions, ideas that you want to see us cover. It's the summertime. We talk about the summertime all the time. And it's when we can do interesting stuff, like take a 15-minute ramble about how many times Tech has played Clemson in all sports combined or whatever. As always, you can reach us to comment those things at from the rumble seat at gmail.com and at FTRS blog on Twitter. You can comment on our site and it will all get to us. You can also email us more broadly, just your ideas and your comments and your feedback at from the rumble seat at gmail.com. In addition to your podcast ideas, find us at fromtherumbleseat.com. You can find me and Jack at Jake Grant 98 and at Jack Nicholas on Twitter. You can find Section 103 at Section 103 and at section103.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat, which is pretty nifty additions that we've got there. And then you can find our podcast wherever fine podcasts are distributed. As always, I've been Jake. That has been Jack. Good night, good luck, and go Jackets.